Get ready now for an engaging journey into the future of media production and post-production with the team behind Alteon.io, last year's Product of the Year winner. This keynote session is not just another talk, though. It's an interactive exploration into the forefront of media creation. We're going to take a deep dive with Alteon.io's experts into real-world challenges and breakthrough solutions that are transforming how we think about and execute media projects. Let's take a look at that right now. Yes, very cool stuff. Please welcome now Matt Samaglia, co-founder and CEO of Alteon.io. Give him a round of applause, everyone. There you are. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. How are you today? Thank you for coming out to our session. It's going to be jam-packed with a lot of experts that I've known personally throughout the last couple decades of being in this industry. One of the things that I want to highlight is the fact that this is now our third year here at NAB. It's been so incredible to be here this year just because we're seeing so much buzz, especially around generative AI and cloud-based workflows. And this is really where Alteon sits at that intersection of all of these different things. So to kind of take you guys a little bit back, I've been in this industry for, again, 2 decades, started out at NBC Network News, had my own production company, and ultimately about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided, hey, why not build a tool that I personally would be using if I was still running my old production company? And I scratched my head because I couldn't find that tool. It didn't exist. There wasn't a SaaS platform out there that was sort of the everyday person's cloud computing software all bundled into one with extensions for nonlinear edit systems. And also, when you looked at a lot of the cloud storage providers out there, you almost needed a rocket science degree to just figure out how their billing worked. So again, a lot of different things there that I just couldn't really understand. And then I had this idea that, one day the world would hopefully go remote. We'd start embracing cloud-based workflows and remote workflows. And this was in about December 2019 when we broke ground on Alteon. And lo and behold, a couple months later, unfortunately, the world did go remote. But it was a really great opportunity for us to really hunker down and build a product that we truly believed that would change the production industry. Now, fast forward, we were here at NAB April of 22 with our first public beta offering. That show allowed us to really kind of engage with you guys. It allowed us to really listen. It allowed us to kind of re-institutionalize our product and get it to a point to where it then got out last year, and we had our first public rollout of our software. That was really exciting for us also because we ended up winning Product of the Year, as was just mentioned. So with that said, we have a lot of really cool updates since last year. I'd like to now introduce our head of product, Brian Meany, to come out onto the stage and share with you what we've done since then. Brian?
Thanks, Matt. Hi, all. Thanks so much for coming. Welcome, NAB 2024. So, yeah, as Matt was mentioning as well, the entire Alteon team is very humbled by winning the award last year for Product of the Year, but it also gave us a lot of opportunity to collect a lot of user feedback, something that's very, very important to us. So we've been spending some of our last years analyzing the feedback and then working on some changes. So I'm just going to highlight some of the changes that are going on. There's a lot of other things happening. So the first things that we've been working on is working with your media. So we're all about working on creative media in the cloud. So we've made a lot of improvements to how you're visualizing your media, the playback, adding some better professional keyboard shortcuts to make it very efficient, and even a little future looking as well. So adding in support for spatial visualization files, files for spatial computing, such as USDZ and so forth as well. So really starting to look a little bit ahead as well. So those are some of the first things, but honestly, one of the largest feature requests we were also getting is support for review and approve. Definitely a feature set that everyone kind of needs out there to make sure they're collaborating well with their teams. So we also went in there and made a lot of changes to review and approve, adding a lot of support for commenting, easy commenting for your entire team that you're collaborating with, as well as the ability to see that feedback asynchronously as needed, or it can even be updating live, just like you're getting messages in your chat. So if you need that instant feedback, you can get your team together no matter where they are, get the feedback on your project, and then know what you need to be doing to kind of clean that up. And additionally, you can also send out a guest link to a stakeholder to actually get their feedback as well, and then support and kind of bring that in. So anything that we need to do to kind of get that collaboration happening. And then not only just working on new features, we're about creative collaboration in the cloud with large media files. So we could take up to a whole 5 terabytes for a single file up to the cloud, and as we all know, our files are getting larger and larger, so it's something that's super important. And so what we spend a lot of time is optimizing the upload speeds, making sure that when we do generate proxies, because we do that up in the cloud, that's happening in the background, and that's not going to interfere with any of your work right away, so you can start working on those files, getting them prepped for your sessions, and then we'll be generating the proxies in the background as well. So anything we need to do to get the media ready for the rest of the team. And then that comes into the last part as well, is getting it to your post-production team. So yes, we have a web app, yes, we have a mobile application, but we also have workflow extensions for both Adobe Premiere Pro as well as Apple's Final Cut Pro. So we've been spending time working on the integration patterns for that, making it very easy to download the media into those applications, as well as new media that's been added to the applications, getting it uploaded back to the cloud, so anyone else in the post-production team can work with that going forward. So any of those enhancements to make that happen. And there's other little things. We've been working on trying to have better proxy workflows for your mobile devices, whether it's getting 8K files or getting proxy files on your iPad, editing them, and then moving them over to a desktop for a final conform and things like that as well, but having a look to where all those things need to be going. So with that, I'm going to kind of pause here. There's other things kind of going on, a lot more going in the next year, but I think we're going to move over to our first forum and start talking about acquisition and encoding. So I'm going to welcome the rest of the team to kind of come on up, and we'll start our first discussion.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that. And again, this is a really cool discussion point because we're so interested in streaming right now, especially for Alteon and our product line, whether it's streaming into Alteon as a cloud destination or streaming from your NLE or your various tools and things like that. I brought 2 experts, arguably, in the field, John and Josh. If you could each just give me, in the audience, sort of a 1-minute backgrounder on sort of who you are and how you work in this industry.
Sure. So I've been involved in the streaming world now for about 20 to 25 years. Originally, back in the day when people were using Reel, and lately over the last 10 years, 15 years, been working with a company called Teradek, where we make very small encoders, and really over that period of time, delivered about 300,000 devices for streaming. I've been involved in streaming some of the biggest events in the world, whether that's NASA's last eclipse or a Super Bowl. We've been involved in all of those.
Cool. And Josh, you bring a really unique set of circumstances here from your background. I'd love for you to share us with that.
Yeah, so 2.5 decades of military communications experience. Started off enlisted in the Air Force, electronic warfare systems, communication, navigation systems, and then moved into direct government service. And so my time, 2008 to 2017, was at Naval Special Warfare Development Group, developing new technologies for naval special warfare operators and special operations at large. And a large part of that focus was delivering resilient video from the tactical edge, very relevant to ongoing mission sets there, and where literally life would hang in the balance of getting quality video or not, right? And then moving, spent some time at NATO, running communications there, L3 Harris Communication Systems, and then was fortunate enough to come on here at Reticulate Micro, where I'm the CEO and president.
So really mission critical streaming, and now we're looking at some other areas. So one of the things that I really want to stress, both of you guys have experience in, is this this new wave that we've seen in the last couple of years of camera to cloud workflows, but the infrastructure, right? How is the infrastructure really impacting now this workflow and streaming up to the cloud? And what are some of the limitations and what are some of the advantages that you guys see coming into the space with a lot more of these infrastructure upgrades? I mean, my personal home connection is now a 1 gig fiber, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it from a home user. But with those sorts of increases, how do you see that impacting this space?
Well, if I look historically of the way streaming is going, and I look to the future, and I think about where the vulnerabilities are going to hit us, I think that something that we're not really thinking about today, but deep fakes are something that is going to have to really be looked at. And if you look at the platforms out there today, typically a camera is fed into an encoder, is pushed to the cloud, and then distributed to a CDN or to a decoder, and then onto a television station, right? All those points are vulnerable. And governance and deepfakes are something that I know Fox is really aware of, or Fox just released a platform that one can kind of register their content because of the fear of a deepfake. And I know that you're a member of an organization.
Yeah, we're part of C2PA, yeah.
Which is an organization of all the media companies in the business about governance, right?
Yeah, so C2PA is a content provenance. It's sort of a forensic watermark inside of the files that are uploaded into Alteon. And this is something that we're exploring right now and working with them. And what's been great for me to see is we've been a member for almost a year now, and it's great to see Sony and Leica and a couple camera manufacturers out there, and also Adobe and some others that are really embracing this idea or this concept of provenance for a file. When we were here in 22, we really stressed NFTs at the time, and it wasn't sort of for the get-rich-quick scheme of things. It was more for that file provenance. Where did this file originate from? And I think that as you're talking about deep fakes, this certainly is a big component. Josh, I'm going to kind of flip it over to you. One of the things that I'm also interested in is quantum or post-quantum encryption, right? So we look at the show floor. Everyone's talking about AI right now, and obviously that's the big shiny thing, generative AI. And it's incredible where we've come even in just the last year with that. But when I really think about all of these different things coming together, what we really should be focused on is post-quantum encryption. And Josh, I know that you know a fair amount about this. I'd love to get your sense and also kind of explain to everyone what this actually is.
Yeah, so the quantum threat is real. It's alive and well today. And so the threat there is that with all of the benefits, I mean, quantum computing, where we're harnessing the mathematics of quantum science to enhance our quality of life, it's going to have a massive beneficial impact on medicine and the way we manage finances. It'll change every aspect of our lives, I think, for the better. But there's also the threat of potentially using that technology by state actors to break encryption. And so this isn't something that's theoretical anymore. This is actually taking place today. And so,
I mean, you saw NVIDIA come out a couple weeks ago with their new quantum cloud, right?
Exactly.
You see Quantinuum doing some really incredible things in the space, and IBM as well. So now it's starting to become a little bit more democratized in the sense of people having access to this, which is going to be really great for a lot of industries and a lot of applications that can be built out of it.
Yes.
But I think that we also have to be protective, and anyone that's building an encoder, and John, you know this.
So what you're saying in real terms is that 256-bit encryption that we've all become, which has become the standard, is vulnerable and has been broken?
right, RSA and ECC, any encryption that's based on that, asymmetric, symmetric keys, traditional, I would say classical cryptography at this point is all but gone. And so unless we transition to a post-quantum based solution, we're going to be in a bad way.
So what
John,
we're saying is,
go ahead.
So what you're saying, therefore, is we need an encoder with quantum encryption end-to-end.
Exactly.
Or at least add quantum encryption into the weak points of the file chain.
Correct, yeah. So I think the first step that we're seeing is the ability to add extended entropy to give us better randomization to enhance our quantum approaches.
And Brian, I have a question for you, sort of on the post side, where do you see encryption really aiding in some of sort of this world that we're about to step into?
Well, I mean, really at every stage, really kind of getting into that. So, I mean, definitely from the acquisition all the way up to the output to just have integrity of what you're actually making at that point in time. But every single touch point and to that point are also going to be vulnerable as well.
Yeah. And John, are you seeing anyone yet kind of in the encoder world come out with anything like this?
Yes, absolutely. They are starting to come out into the market. I think that this time next year, quantum encryption will be a standard that we all use. So talk about another solution or another problem, if we're talking about what I see in the future, is the lowering of bit rates with new encoding protocols and techniques, right? Because
and is there a cost savings to some of that? I mean,
absolutely. I was watching a presentation by Fox the other day, and they were saying that the cost of delivering an asset to a consumer is about $30 per asset, but has been reduced to $8 per asset. And their hopes is that with further compression, compression equals less data, which equals cost savings in the end. And the goal is to get to a place where return on investment for streaming will be down to about $1 per asset.
And also, I think that lowering some of the file sizes too, right? Like really compressing these file sizes, getting it to the post, kind of what we've been talking about as well. Like if I'm now able to go and edit in the field off of content that's streaming from a server from somewhere else, and I have a very low internet connection, having that come to me and I'm able to really get that work done, it really adds to the sort of overall production pipeline or the production chain that I'm regularly in. Josh, what are some of the things that you've experienced in sending video over incredibly low bit rates?
Yeah, so going back to my time supporting the services, there were certainly times when we call them disconnected, intermittent, and latent environments where these super small connections just couldn't support, we would call them then classical, or the early days of H.264, or even H.265, where those codecs really couldn't operate well over those super small connections. And so I think current advancements in embracing new codecs is overcoming those small connections.
What bit rate were you using?
We were able to achieve, I would say, between 200 to 300 kilobits per second. It was something that's usable, but our connections at that time would often dip below half of that.
So you're saying you can encode a 1080p 30 at what?
Our current technology, we can do 1080p 15 to 30 frames per second at around 120 to upwards of 180 kilobits per second for something that's usable, and broadcast quality around 220 to 240 kilobits per second.
Which in my experience is unheard of in the existing world.
Here. Now, in terms of just anything else that you guys see as we sort of get into the last couple of minutes of this part of the session, what else is out there that we just need to be thinking about in terms of streaming?
Well, I consider that there's three legs to the stool of streaming. Quality, I think we're all acceptance that 4K or 8K as it's coming on. I heard Facebook can now support 8K streaming. Reliability, I think we all accept that we can stream reliably nowadays. But one of the things that I don't see us seeing on a daily basis is ultra low latency to the consumer, right? And I think that that's the next leg that has to be seen as a standard. I know that there are low latency protocols out there, and there are low latency providers out there, but it's not something that you or I see on our Facebook stream or our, on a regular day. So I think latency is something that is going to be the third leg that within the next year also will become a standard feature.
Josh?
Yeah, certainly. I think, again, within the military context, low latency video is critical for mission success. And so sometimes where even a second or a second and a half of delay could change the outcome from, again, a success to a failure, where lives literally hang in the balance. And so I agree. I think pushing for standards and I would say, super low latency, 13, 17, 20 milliseconds to make something usable, and it's equally beneficial to the commercial segment as well. And when we're trying to co-edit or co-manipulate video in real time on opposite sides of the country.
So Brian, I'm going to have you help us segue into the next part of this discussion, which is going to be all about post-production. But as we're talking about streaming and as we're talking about either, again, ingest or play out, where do you see streaming, and especially what we're talking about here, really aiding in the post-production process?
Sure.
Maybe speeding things up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there, and I mean, we're just kind of getting into it. There's definitely about the streaming for the acquisition that's been kind of an easy one as well, but just for this and hearing the whole low latency as well, and the post side, latency has to be low. That's like one of those bars that just has to be up front, otherwise everything's unusable. So getting the fact of having things more mobile and editing anywhere, the ability to stream even into the post while you're doing it live, could be some exciting things to be watching for in the years to come as well.
Cool. And on that bombshell, we're going to go ahead and go into our next part of the discussion. I'm going to invite Jen Jager out onto the stage, and she's going to give a little bit of a preview of how we're impacting the post world inside of Final Cut Pro with our workflow extension for Alteon. So Jen, come on out.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. As you heard, my name is Jen Jager, and I own a small but mighty video production company based in South Florida in Boca Raton called Plum Productions. We do corporate video work, and I think we're a little bit of an anomaly in video production companies more recently because we're a team of 6 full-timers, and we all work in-house. So you wouldn't think that we would need a cloud-based collaborative solution like Alteon because everybody's in-house and we're not a team working remotely. But let me tell you about the last week at Plum Productions. Late last week, we had a 3-day shoot in Orlando, which is about 3 hours from where our headquarters are, and I sent 3 of my team members to Orlando. And then simultaneously, we had a 2-day shoot down in Miami, which is about an hour and a half away. And I sent an in-house producer to that. And we hired a freelance crew that we use frequently to handle that shoot. And on top of that, my husband and I, who own the video production company, got on a plane and flew here to Vegas to be with everyone here at NAB. So it was a very busy week for us. And we wouldn't have been able to manage it all if it weren't for Alteon. So first and foremost, we needed to get those files from the, sorry, pop-ups. We needed to get those files from that Miami crew. And I could have sent that producer with the hard drive, so at the end of the second day, they could all sit together and wait for all the media to transfer. But who would do that? It's 2024. Instead, all I had to do was send an invite link to the freelance videographer, and he is currently uploading those video clips to my Alteon account. So no hard drives needed, and he's doing it pretty much at his convenience, and I'll get an email when the files are done uploading. Now, the Orlando project was a little bit of a different story because we really didn't need a digital transfer of those files because the crew's just going to load all the equipment into the van with the memory cards and drive back down to the office. Except, in about 90 minutes from now, I'm going to be in the South Hall at Post-Production World giving a section on multicam workflows for Final Cut Pro. And this Orlando shoot had a very specific multicam configuration that I wanted to use for my session. But I wasn't going to see the Orlando team before I left for Vegas. So from our client's office in Vegas, our producer uploaded a few clips that I needed, and literally I was sitting at the gate at the Palm Beach airport, right ready to board my flight, and I could see on my phone that my clips were starting to populate. So I could get on that plane feeling relaxed that I would have what I need. In addition, like you probably, I'm out on the exhibit floor here, and there's like so much cool stuff to see. So I'm videotaping a lot of things with my phone, and I'm able to upload them right to my Alteon account through my mobile app, straight from my phone. What a time to be alive. And you could probably think something like, yeah, but you could do that with another solution like Dropbox or WeTransfer. But what I really love about solutions like Alteon is that we're able to have seamless workflows because this product is designed by video production professionals for video production professionals. And what I'm able to do is through the workflow extension is import my media from Final Cut through this workflow extension from Alteon right into my Final Cut library. And that's something I could never do with Dropbox or WeTransfer, particularly with WeTransfer, because I have to download all of the media from whatever my producer sent me from WeTransfer. I can't look at it till it's downloaded and I can unzip it. Whereas with Alteon, I can cherry pick the exact shots I want and import them right into my library. In addition, as Brian talked about, Alteon, every time you upload a clip into your Alteon account, it automatically starts creating proxies. So at 4:30, when I'm upstairs talking about multicam editing on my little travel laptop here, I can switch over to proxy media and not worry that my computer is going to hang up. And the other thing that's great about Alteon is that we can use it for long-term archival storage. So it serves as a backup and something I can access tomorrow or retrieve in 5 years from now. And so until like very recently, we were doing what most small video production companies were doing, which was utilizing solutions that were not really designed for video workflows and just kind of making do. And now that there's tools that are designed for people in our industry, it is such a game changer, and we're able to work so much more seamlessly. So at this point, I'd like to invite some other people. We're going to have another panel discussion about creativity. Thank you.
I get the middle seat.
Center stage.
The middle seat is always the best seat.
I mean, nothing else less for you, Tom. So, Jen, that was really great, and thank you for showing us that. I want to definitely get into a little bit more of the Final Cut workflows with you in a minute, but I want to introduce each one of you guys independently, again, similar to what I did with John and Josh. I'd love for you guys to each give a minute of yourself. Tom, I'm going to let you go last, because what I'd love for you to do, if you can, share with the audience sort of the last few decades of experience that you might have. I think you might take a little bit more than a minute to do that.
They call that the seasoned veteran, right?
Okay. So Jen, I'd love to kind of have you talk a little bit more about yourself just in 1 minute.
Sure. So I started my production company back in 2009. It was just me. And at the time, media management wasn't even remotely a concern. I was more worried about getting clients and growing. We've now, grown to a team of 6, which is kind of nice. We're not just like freelancers. We're a real production house. And in addition, I started making like YouTube content a few years ago, and I've got a couple YouTube channels where I review products for video production services. I do tutorials on Final Cut Pro and Apple Motion.
Cool.
And yeah.
Jacob.
My name is Jacob Rush. I currently do freelance video editing, and I obviously met Matt through actually the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. So I edit one-handed, and I actually learned about Matt's story, and I really like the small team aspect of what you have going on, because obviously with me being one-handed and being able to use Apple's accessibility features, I noticed that when I went to a larger corporation, they were not able to work with me one-on-one directly to be able to get the accessibility features that I needed. So I've worked with a lot of...
And an incredible editor you are, too.
Yes. I have done multiple things with LinkedIn Learning, Future Media Conferences, Boris Effects, and MotionVFX.com.
Yeah. Tom, you're up.
I think it's interesting, but the prelude is I was employee number 8 at Avid Technology. We had $500,000 from Greylock. We built a company, and there have been a few different companies along the way. I built the workflow modeling engine, the user interface at Signiant. I came up with the ideas of the Cisco Media Data Center and the IP Fabric for Media. And at IBM, I worked on all of the sort of early speech-to-text algorithms and so forth for closed captioning. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff we're going to talk about once we get to that. And it's a pleasure to be here and working with the Alteon folks to hopefully bring forward, sort of the next big transitions that we have in the industry.
And Brian, I don't know if we've actually had a chance to have the audience hear a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I've been coming here for many decades as well, and so as part of a team initially doing editing, but got suckered in between my freelance gigs to help work on a product that turned into Final Cut Pro. So I was one of the team that made Final Cut Pro in the beginning and kind of helped build that application over a couple decades and work on video at Apple. And I also had a small stint at Magic Leap for a good number of years, getting into spatial computing. So I always like to joke that I've worked at two of the most secretive companies kind of around at that point in time, dealing with different media acquisitions. So, yes.
Now, Jen, I want to go back to you for a second here and talk to you about Final Cut workflows, right? And where have you seen a big shift? And I know that you were joking a bit ago about starting your company way back when and not really worrying about how you're handling your media, but yet I would say a couple months ago I was at your office and you're like, what do I do with these hard drives that I have all over the place?
Yes. I mean, it's hard because, I think back to when I first started. It was just me. I had one camera. We were shooting in HD. I didn't have tons of clients. And so I really didn't even think about setting up a system that was going to serve me in 15 years. I couldn't think even a year into the future. So the change has been, obviously, now we've got 4 cameras, and we're doing all these multicam shoots, and everything's 4K, and there's just so much more media to manage, in addition to the fact that I had no idea I would be starting 2 YouTube channels and literally have made maybe 500 videos in total that are on YouTube. The amount of media that we have to manage is, it's shocking, really, at this point. And it's been a long road trying to find a solution. Because I think it's a problem that most production companies are facing. It's talent and it's media.
And I think that some of our emphasis on the Final Cut side too, right? It really kind of helps us stand apart from some of the other players that might exist out there. We do have a very big, strong emphasis on that. We do have an integration with Adobe Premiere Pro, and we are slightly working on something with DaVinci as well. But I would say that for the most part, we really are embracing this sort of ecosystem. Jacob, I know that you had an instance about a month or two ago. We were on the phone talking about this, where you lost a hard drive. And how did Alteon sort of step in on that?
It stepped in because I take everything that I do and duplicate it probably 5 times on Alteon and a bunch of different hard drives around. And to me, when I lost that hard drive, I was actually able to download the original media back from Alteon. Since that we use an app from Telestream called ScreenFlow, I was able to retranscode all of that media and to be able to re-export it and re-download the Final Cut library that I was using to be able to literally get it back up and running in literally about 10 minutes.
And I want you to get into a little bit too, so Jacob and I initially met 2 or 3 years ago, and what was so incredible about Jacob's story was, again, he's limited to the use of one hand, and it wasn't something that we initially, unfortunately, we did not think about when we were sort of building out this platform. And it was something that really was brought to my attention, and immediately was just something that I said, we have to get into this. And with you working with our product team, it's really reshaped a lot of what our product has from an accessibility perspective today. How has that really helped you kind of streamline your workflow?
That has really helped me because obviously I work with a lot of people with disabilities whenever I do consultations and stuff with people, and being able to have that on my mat to be able to have voiceover and excessive touch for me only being able to use one hand, and it worked flawlessly within the Final Cut Pro workflow extension. That has been absolutely game-changing.
This is a kind of combined Tom and Brian question. Where have we gone in the post world, and where do you guys see things kind of going? Where do you see things kind of evolving?
It's a small question.
So we have 22 minutes left, so you might go over, but sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's gone a long way. I mean, when I went to film school and so forth as well, obviously it was just kind of beginning. I think I saw an early version of Avid at a SMPTE conference. I think it was even pre-release at the time back then as well. So
Which he probably still has running on a computer somewhere.
good chances. So yeah, just the entire revolution of kind of getting things digital and having things non-linear and so forth, so you can kind of get to that editing. And we were talking about this earlier too, things kind of coming in cycles and so forth as well, and kind of patterns. And that's where it feels like there are definitely times where it comes and goes. And
Look, I think I want to give you a little bit of perspective on things. And so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to do 35 and 5. So 35 years in 5 minutes or so, okay? So I first came to the show in 1989. And we lost 2 years because of COVID. So this is my 33rd year straight. And I want to give you some perspective in terms of how fast things are happening and how acceleration is really impacting all of the things that we're doing, that you're going to be doing yourselves, and things that you'll see in this show floor. So trip down memory lane, I'm going to take you through the decades, and hopefully there'll be a payoff at the end of this, okay? So bear with me. 1989, you get here. Hard drive storage is $15 a megabyte. A 600 megabyte drive is $9 grand, okay? There's no JPEG compression. It's all software decimation. You've got 250 to 1 compression, okay? And that starts the digital nonlinear editing revolution. 7 years, and it's done. So 100 years of film editing, videotape editing, it's all compressed in 7 years, transition number 1, okay? Let me take you to 2001 to 2004. There are these things called compact discs, CDs, right? And there's a show called American Idol, okay? When a winner was, when somebody won, rabid fan base to go and get a CD in a store, okay? That supply chain was all physical. Record in LA, record in Nashville, mix in LA, master in New York, all physical. 21-day supply chain. What happened in 2004? Client-server applications, secure transmission of files, cut the supply chain down from 21 days to 9 days. Sounds like a lot, right? You cut down 12 days of a supply chain when it's all physical to digital, millions of dollars of revenue. That's 2004, okay? We'll go to 2010, 2015, okay? Digital media supply chain. What do you have? You have people using over-provisioned, underutilized networks. They're using FTP. Stuff is taking forever. You got 3 weeks of supply chain for files coalesced down to 24 hours because you're doing UDP acceleration over the open internet. So you have to secure content. You have to asset track it. You have to have audit trails. That's 2015, okay? Then you fast forward a little bit to 2018. 2018, 2023, somewhere in here, okay? Why do broadcast facilities not look like hyperscaler data centers? They should, right? And now, lo and behold, they do. Okay, those are some of the things that I worked on, for example, at Cisco. Cisco media data centers and so forth, and other data centers. They're hyperscalers, right? Take a page out of that. You get in that same time period of IP. Well, okay, so SDI has specific advantages. IP has a lot of deficiencies. That boat has sailed, and we're well into, IP connectivity. You see all the manufacturers, they have to embrace 2110 and so forth. That's playing out. Let's fast forward a little bit ahead now. We'll get into the 2021, 2023 time period. Speech to text, automated closed captioning, right? Doesn't work. Doesn't work because you've got 4 people talking at the same time. You've got wind noise. You've got all this background noise. It's impossible. Okay. You've seen Peter Jackson's Beatles documentary, obviously. If you've seen it, you'll see all that sort of voice synthesizing. You'll see that separation. All of those tools are coming into the mainstream now, and so you're going to be able to do very intricate things that heretofore you weren't able to do. Okay? So all of this is playing out, and the point is AI, generative, all the other stuff that you're hearing at this show all of these things eventually are going to play into this whole process. The point of all this and taking you down memory lane is how fast things are compressing and accelerating in terms of change. So with respect to collaboration, with respect to putting assets in a cloud system, the reason that collaboration and use case sharing and asset sharing is not well understood is because it's actually hard to do. Because I'll give you an example. You're working with 3 people. You're editing live PowerPoint, right? Some people have a fast connection. 2 people have a slow connection. What happens? Everything's out of sync. The screen's refreshing, okay? And you're like, this is impossible. So what happens? A human being says, I'm going to download the file. I'm going to edit the file offline. I'm going to put the file back up. What happens? You've got massive version control and problems. It breaks everything, right? So this is actually a problem with video, right? It's messy, it's big, and it requires a lot of, as I said earlier, asset tracking, audit trails, encryption. It is IP. So I take you down this memory lane only to leave you with one thing, and that is it's not going to be 7 years before a big transition happens and is well adopted. It's not going to be 4 years. It's not going to be 3 years. It's going to be really, really rapid. And so those are the types of things that Alteon will embrace in order to be able to slot engines in and slot engines out in order for you to actually have something that is modular, but also that protects content. And again, you want to be in synchronization with the people that you're collaborating with. It's not easy to do. And that's why I think collaboration is not well understood, because when you peel it back, there's a lot of intricacies involved. So it's more than 5 minutes, but I'm hoping it was
it was a great recap. And I mean, like, I look back at my own career, and so my first Avid was $80,000. And kind of what you're getting to now is the democratization of these products, that in my pocket, I can have not only an incredible camera shooting at 4K, ProRes RAW or something, but I can also edit it on that same device and then upload it to somewhere. Or I can upload that content, kind of like what you were referring to. I will often test our own product whenever I'm traveling, because I want to see how it works. I want to see how it works in different countries, in different hotels, in different Wi-Fi settings. I actually uploaded a video on the plane here just to have other people review, because I wanted to see how that workflow would go, and it actually worked out really well. But I think it's this democratization that I get so excited about, in the sense that more and more people are becoming content creators. And it's that accessibility of these tools that were once really only coveted by a few. And this is why one of the reasons I had to exit my old company is because I saw this pattern happening where my clients were coming to me saying, hey, we've got some iPhone footage, can we just edit that? Where the year prior, same campaign would be $50,000 shoot, $100,000 shoot with multiple people on a crew. So it was just this rapid change, and I think that where we're going in the next couple of years, we need to be ready for it. And I think that this room needs to be ready for it, because we are really seeing a rapid change in technology, and it's great and it's exciting, but it can also be scary at sometimes. Jen, I want to kind of go to you a little bit. Where are you seeing things on the AI front? Like, where do you see things, how it's going to help you in your business, and how it's going to accelerate the speed in which you're getting things done efficiently?
I mean, I would love to see AI be able to do a lot of the menial tasks that eat up a lot of an editor's time. So that could be sorting your clips with, keyword collections in Final Cut Pro. I would love to see all of that automated with AI. I'm more reserved about more of the creative process. I think that human beings are always going to be more, well, at this rate anyway, more creative than, any AI tool. To me, like, some of the things that are most useful are voice cloning. So I do that on my own YouTube videos sometimes if I misspeak. Instead of having to set up a microphone and redo everything again, I can just use like a tool like Descript, overdub, and I type what I want, and it's my voice saying it, and I drop it into my edit, that kind of thing. But I do hope that it doesn't eliminate people's jobs. I hope that it just changes what we're doing and makes us work differently. What that looks like, that's the million-dollar question that it seems like everyone here at NAB is asking.
Yeah. Jacob, how do you see AI kind of affecting your workflow?
I personally see it because obviously I have to mask a lot of stuff as I'm doing stuff whenever I'm doing tutorial videos and stuff like that due to people's sensitive content. So to me, what I really want is stuff that is able to enhance what I personally do as an editor, not completely take over from me, but definitely get me about 90% there, such as like the voice isolation feature inside of Final Cut Pro for bad audio. That literally has been game-changing whenever you record in a noisy environment and or something like Roto AI for motion VFX. I feel like that can be really effective and still let me as the editor stay creative. So to me, that I just want to be able to still have full control over what happens in the edit, but I also want to get rid of the mundane processes of being able to take away 20 hours to render something within Apple Motion to be able to do rotoscoping keyframe by keyframe. So to me, I just want to be able to have the access to those tools to be able to streamline our editing process.
Sure. Tom, where do you see things kind of shifting on the AI front?
Look, I think that, you know, you've heard some of this, but I don't know necessarily that we're really prepared for the amount of content that's going to get created. And we've been saying this for, you know, a decade. More and more will be created, et cetera, et cetera. You know, but there are some pretty big things that are going to happen to change the way, you know, historical things have been done. The digital nonlinear editing revolution that happened, you know, some 4 decades ago almost, right, is all going to change, right? So text-driven editing systems are happening. And, you know, we saw one, right, which you've mentioned, and now there are multiple ones, right? Yeah. And so it's going to, that's real democratization, right? And it really harkens back to a word processor for picture and sound. But if you can type, and it, you know, strings together those, you know, those video sections for you, there's a whole other area, and it might not be film, it might not be television, but it might be enterprise video that nobody's been able to really crack because, you know, you've needed to be a classically trained editor to go through all of that content. It's all going to get indexed. It's all going to be available. Certainly in terms of just generative lip sync, you know, exact lip sync with multiple languages, you know, being able to crank out 50, 60 different languages with complete great synchronization, that changes the equation of a lot of things. To some extent, people can say, okay, so human dubbing artists, you know, where are they left? On the other hand, you can say, I now can actually create a piece of content and make it available to the world same day and date, right? So it's all of these little things that you still have to be able to, you know, control and be able to utilize. But really the point is, democratization is really about to happen. And that means this deluge of content is going to be here. And you know, I talked to a customer just a couple of days ago. They have 20 million files in a cloud. They really don't know what's there. So, well, how does that happen? Well, it happens because of versions, feature creep, stuffing things, redundancy, all of those things.
And they haven't adopted Alteon yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, that's what it is. Brian, you and I talk about this a lot, where Alteon sits in the AI front in that sort of nucleus things. I'd love to get a little bit of your perspective on that.
Sure. I mean, specifically to Alteon, because I share the interesting parts of like all the workflows that can be done and in terms of what can be generated, but also democratization. But Alteon, from the standpoint of getting media in one place that you know is yours and balance that with the authentication of like, this is that media, actually opens up a lot of possibilities, which are things that we're very excited about, of like knowing what media is using your media to help generate other media, and really having that authentication of what your media is that's being generated is very powerful, and then can help solve some of the issues that are the concerns.
Yeah, so for instance on this is we have a enterprise client that's on our platform or coming into our platform right now, and they have massive amounts of files, and these are very large, very long files as well, and they needed to do analytics on them. So they're going out and shooting drone footage. They're doing satellite footage of wind farms around the world. So they have all of these wind turbines all over the world, and they needed to analyze it somehow. And right now, their current process is analysts within their organization have thumb drives or external drives where they're storing all of this content because their internal network can't support these large pieces of data. And where we came in was we said, look, why don't you upload all of your content so you can have an AI built on top of it that in order for an AI to work, you need a large organized data set to begin with. Alteon can become that. So one of our core missions is not necessarily to go out and be an AI company, because I think that it's really hard at this stage of the game to go and compete with some of the bigger companies that are out there, whether it's an OpenAI or Google, Watson X, things like that. But what we want to do is really embrace all of the AI. So we sit at that nucleus because you still have to have data stored somewhere. And we always know that there's things that are going to be evolving over time. So we want to be able to support that and be able to supply to that. I think the other thing is, you kind of said it, it's like creators want to create, right? I think we're all artists in some degree. Everyone in this room wants to create content. And so one of the greatest things I think that we have going for us is that security of somebody's going to still go out and acquire something somehow, right? I don't know if it's even going to be a camera in the future. It might just be a device that has a LiDAR scan of something, or able to represent a replication of that. But in the end, we want to tell stories. This has been going on since literally the beginning of time. And so if we can be sitting in that nucleus of it all, supplying a place for people to store their data, access it when they need it. Again, Tom, this is a story that we hear time and time and time again within our sales calls, is the fact that I have so many files and I have so many people that have touched a specific project over the length of years that I just don't know what's there. And Jen, you and I have talked about the fact that you can go as a business owner and reuse a lot of the footage that's out there.
Yeah.
And it ultimately saves your clients money, right?
It does. I mean, we finally, again, going back to 2009, when I didn't know what the future held for me, we would just retain all of the raw media in perpetuity on behalf of our clients, and it just gets unmanageable. So we have, written into our contracts now that we only retain the media for a certain amount of time, which is actually untrue. I'm still retaining it for as long as possible until your company has somehow gone out of business, or we just haven't heard from you in so long. But many of our clients are literally partnerships that we've had for, I think the longest one is probably 8 years, and we're on retainer with them, and we're shooting with them every month, and all of that media is safely stored for us, and we refer back to it, not all the time, but it comes up for sure.
And now with the Alteon archive that you have, it's even better.
So much easier.
Not that I plug our product every once in a while, but if you could see a pattern there. No, I mean, I think it is really incredible, and this is one of the things, again, when I was running my production company, we would actually go out and overshoot whenever we were on a production, because I would go and say, look, if we had access to a specific C-suite executive at a company, their time is very valuable, and I know that I'm not going to get that again, or at least for several months. So we would ask more questions, or we would pump them for something, and then I would look like a hero the next month because I'd tell the client, hey, I know that you have a limited budget this month because we overspent last month, but I can give you a brand new video for $2,000 instead of $50,000. And every time they would just be like, how did you do this? And a lot of it was organization. And at that time period, we were doing everything manually. I mean, this was 10 years ago or so, but we were doing everything on Excel spreadsheets, and we had a large group of editors that we were working with on a regular, but specific editors would only work with specific clients within my organization because they had that institutional knowledge of the content that was there. Now, to be able to leverage a lot of this sort of AI analytics, metadata, tagging, things like that comes into play, I can now hire a freelance editor anywhere in the world, and they have the same institutional knowledge as somebody that's been on that piece of content for quite a while in terms of where things might be, or where that hidden shot might be, because they can go and ask for it. There's a lot of really cool AI companies that we've been talking to actually that have a lot of that built in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jacob, just to sort of wrap up a little bit here, where do you want things to go?
I want things to be
Just in post in general.
just in post in general. Personally, what I want as like a workflow sort of thing is me being able to upload something to the cloud and then be able to have those files automatically linked to my Final Cut Pro library so that I can open up the Final Cut Pro library like from Alteon and have everything linked, and then once I close out a Final Cut, have that library automatically update just so that I'm not having to go through different hard drives,
So
having to relink
if anyone
and stuff
from that fruit company is listening, you're saying allow a
Yes.
little bit more access. Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
yeah, I got it. Tom, where do you see things?
Well, I think one of the things to keep in mind, Matt, and you talked about this because from
We've
your
got
advertising.
2 minutes.
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. Ask me what time it is. I'll tell you how to make a watch. Well, here's the deal. Just because something has been solved in one part of our industry, it doesn't mean it's been embraced by another part. The folks who are doing visual effects, they understand the reuse of backgrounds. They understand the use of certain models and so forth, and they've nailed that. But in the advertising world, it costs mid-sized to a little bit larger scale agency, it costs them $1 million to do a pitch. And they might not even get the job. And part of the process involves not really understanding what they've built before and what's accessible to other people inside that agency and what can be reused. It's an asset problem, it's a collaboration problem, it's a knowledge problem. So I would simply say that there's a lot of opportunity out there in industries, even though you think it's been solved, it really hasn't.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And a lot of room for innovation. A lot of room for innovation. Jen, any last thoughts?
No, I'm just excited for the whole AI thing. I feel pretty optimistic. I like to look at it from a, not this dystopian lens. I think a lot of people are seeing doom and gloom. I'm hoping that it's really just going to enhance what we're doing and not detract from it.
Brian, anything on you?
Similar as well. I mean, I'm excited. I feel like we're on the time of change kind of happening as well. So I'm excited to see and help shape where that's kind of going. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your time today. Really appreciate everyone who came out to our session. If you will have any questions, please feel free to grab me or Brian afterwards, and we can talk about Alteon. But thank you guys so much again for your time today, and have a good show.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
Thank you guys so much.